She's not allowed to be here. This is for family only.
That's what my sister said. Funny, considering I was the one who paid for almost everything she was about to stand in front of and enjoy. I wasn't supposed to be there. My sister made sure of that. But that part of the story comes later. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 32 years old, and if you saw me on the street, you probably wouldn't look twice. I'm average height, around 5 feet 6 inches, with straight, dark brown hair. I usually keep tied back in a low, practical ponytail. My style leans toward neutral beige coats, navy dresses, sensible heels. The kind of person who blends into boardrooms and coffee lines without making a sound. But what people don't see is that I'm the one everyone calls when things fall apart. I work as a financial auditor at a mid-sized firm in Manhattan. It's a job that requires precision, patience, and the ability to fix problems quietly before they become disasters. Lately, I've been up for a promotion to senior manager, a role that would mean longer hours, but bigger clients and even less room for mistakes. Pressure has been building for months, but I've never been the type to complain. Because at home, I'm something else entirely. My younger sister, Chloe Carter, is 28 and everything I'm not. She's tall, effortlessly beautiful, with long blonde hair that always looks styled even when she claims she just woke up. She has this natural charisma, the kind that pulls people in without effort. Chloe laughs easily, talks fast, and lives like consequences are optional. People love her for it. I used to be one of them. Then there's Megan Brooks, my best friend since college. Megan is sharp, outspoken, and impossible to ignore. She's a marketing consultant with a bold fashion sense, bright colors, statement jewelry, heels that announce her presence before she says a word. She's always been the one to call me out. You don't have to earn your place in people's lives, Em, she told me once over drinks. I didn't know how to respond to that. At work, there's Daniel Hayes. He's 35, tall and lean, with a quiet confidence that doesn't demand attention, but naturally holds it. Dark hair always slightly messy, sleeves rolled up like he's too focused to care about appearances. Daniel used to work in corporate law before switching to finance after a burnout that, as he once admitted, cost him more than just sleep. He's calm, observant, and unusually kind in a world that rewards the opposite. Lately, he's been paying more attention to me than usual small things, like noticing when I skip lunch or stay too late. And then there's Chloe again, because no matter how stable my life looks from the outside, Chloe has always been the variable that changes everything. She doesn't ask for help the way most people do, she assumes it. A rent payment here, a credit card bill there, and now a wedding. And somehow, without ever saying yes out loud, I had become the one holding it all together. It happened on a Tuesday evening, the kind that feels ordinary until it isn't. Emily Carter stood in line at a small home decor store on the Upper West Side, absently holding a ceramic candle she didn't need. She looked composed as always, navy coat, hair pulled back, posture straight, but her mind was already juggling numbers, deadlines, and a vendor invoice Chloe had asked her to just take care of. That was when her phone buzzed. 6 words. You're out of the wedding, real family only. Emily stared at the screen, her expression barely shifting, but something behind her eyes went still. She read it again, then again, her fingers tightened slightly around the candle, but she didn't drop it. She never dropped anything. There was no follow-up message, no explanation, just silence. But then her phone buzzed again, this time from the Carter family group chat. The messages were already piling up. Courtney Hale, Chloe's bridesmaid, mid-20s, petite, overly tanned, with long acrylic nails and a personality that thrived on attention, was the first to respond with a laughing emoji. OMG Chloe savage. Others followed. Cousins Emily hadn't spoken to in months chimed in with jokes, reactions, and passive comments that felt like background noise to something crueler beneath. Then Chloe replied, "Let's just keep the energy clean for my day. Emily's not really part of this anymore." Emily didn't blink, didn't react, but she felt it sharp and precise, like something quietly breaking. Not one person defended her. She set the candle back on the shelf and walked out of the store without buying anything. The cold air hit her face, but it didn't wake her up. She was already too aware. By the time she got home, her phone had gone quiet again. Not because the conversation ended, but because she had already been dismissed from it. Megan Brooks was the first person she called. "What do you mean she kicked you out?" Megan's voice came through sharp, immediate. "After everything you've done for her." "This isn't normal. This is calculated." Emily sat on her couch, still in her coat. Maybe she's just stressed, she said automatically, though even she didn't sound convinced. Stop, Megan cut in. You always do this. You minimize, you fix, you excuse. At what point do you stop being the solution and start being the person who walks away? Emily didn't answer, because she didn't know how. The next morning at work, Daniel Hayes noticed immediately. Emily was at her desk earlier than usual, already reviewing files, already composed. But something was off. Her movements were too precise, her silence too complete. Daniel leaned against the edge of her desk, arms crossed loosely. But you skipped lunch yesterday, he said casually, and you haven't checked your coffee once in the last hour. That's new. Emily looked up, forcing a small smile. Busy. Daniel studied her for a moment longer than necessary. Busy doesn't usually look like this. She held his gaze for half a second, then looked away. It's nothing. He didn't push. That wasn't his way, but he didn't leave either. And for the first time, Emily felt something unfamiliar settle in her chest. Not pressure, not responsibility. Just the quiet awareness that someone had noticed. Back at her phone, the family group chat had resumed. Plans were still moving forward. Jokes were still being made. Chloe was still at the center of it all. And Emily was no longer part of the story. Emily Carter had always believed numbers told the truth. They didn't soften things, didn't lie to spare feelings. They simply existed, precise and unforgiving. That night, sitting alone in her quiet Manhattan apartment, she opened her banking app the way a surgeon might prepare for an operation. Steady hands, controlled breathing, no room for hesitation. The soft glow of her laptop reflected against her composed face, but her dark eyes, sharp, observant, trained to catch discrepancies, moved with growing intensity as she scrolled. At first it was just transactions, familiar ones, harmless even. Then patterns began to form. Catering deposit, paid. Floral contract, paid. Wedding venue installment, paid. Day booking, paid. Photography retainer, paid. Every single one tied back to her account. Emily leaned back slowly. Her posture still upright, but something in her chest tightening. She wasn't surprised, not exactly. Emily was never surprised by responsibility. She had been shaped by it. Her mind drifted, uninvited, into memory. Chloe at 24, standing in the doorway of Emily's first apartment, mascara smudged, voice trembling. I just need a little help. I'll pay you back, I promise. That little help had turned into 3 months of rent. No repayment ever came. Chloe again, at 26, laughing nervously over coffee. I maxed out my card, but it's fine. I just need to clear it once. Emily had transferred the money before Chloe even finished explaining. And further back, childhood. Emily, at 12, sitting at the kitchen table, helping Chloe with homework while their mother rushed between jobs. Chloe whining, distracted, restless. Emily patient, focused, already carrying something that didn't belong to her. It wasn't a single moment that defined it. It was repetition, expectation. A quiet agreement. No one ever spoke out loud. Emily would handle things. Back in the present, Emily exhaled slowly. This wasn't generosity, this was a system. The next day at work, the numbers followed her. Daniel Hayes noticed. He found her in a conference room alone, staring at a spreadsheet that hadn't changed in 20 minutes. He didn't knock, just stepped in quietly, closing the door behind him. His tall frame moved with calm restraint, his expression thoughtful, rather than intrusive. You ever noticed, he said, leaning lightly against the table, how people who are the most reliable end up being the most taken for granted? Emily didn't look up right away. That sounds like experience talking. Daniel gave a small, humorless smile. Older brother, 2 siblings, parents who thought responsibility meant capability. He paused. I paid my sister's tuition once. She dropped out 6 months later, never told me. That made Emily look up. He wasn't looking for sympathy, just stating a fact. But it's strange, Daniel continued, his voice steady. You start thinking your value is tied to what you can fix, and the moment you stop, people act like you've changed. Emily held his gaze longer this time. Maybe we have. Daniel didn't argue. He just nodded. That night, Emily returned to her apartment, opened her laptop again, and stared at the same numbers, but they didn't feel the same anymore. They weren't just transactions, they were evidence. Emily Carter had always believed control was quiet. It lived in spreadsheets, in balanced accounts, in problems solved before they became visible. But that night, control felt different. It felt like standing on the edge of something irreversible. She sat at her dining table, laptop open, the soft hum of the city filtering through her window. The screen in front of her displayed the catering company's client portal. Clean interface, confirmed booking, paid in full under her name. Emily's posture was still composed back straight, shoulders squared, but her right hand hovered over the trackpad, fingers slightly trembling. It was subtle, almost invisible to anyone else. But to her, it felt like a fracture. All her life she had pressed confirm, approve, send, fix, cover, never cancel. Her reflection stared back at her faintly, through the screen dark eyes, steady but no longer soft. There was a shift there. Not anger, not even sadness, clarity. She clicked cancel booking. A confirmation window appeared. Are you sure this action may result in non-refundable fees? Emily exhaled slowly. Her fingers tightened once, then pressed yes. The sound was silent, but the impact wasn't. One by one, she moved down the list. Florist Mrs. Caldwell, a meticulous woman in her late 50s with silver-streaked hair, always pinned neatly into a bun, known for her calm demeanor and obsession with detail. Emily had met her twice over coffee to discuss Chloe's vision. Now Emily typed a short email. Please proceed with immediate cancellation. Funding has been withdrawn. DJ cancelled. Venue installment terminated. Photographer deposit forfeited. Each action felt like cutting a thread, and with every cut, something inside her steadied. Her phone lit up before she even finished. Mom calling. Emily let it ring once. Twice. Then answered. Her mother's voice came fast, sharp, strained. Emily, what are you doing? Chloe just called me. She said vendors are cancelling. You need to fix this right now. Emily leaned back in her chair, her expression calm, almost distant. I'm not fixing it. Silence, then disbelief. This is your sister's wedding. No, Emily said quietly. It's hers, not mine. Another call came in. Her father, then Chloe, then numbers she didn't recognize. She ignored them all. An hour later, Megan arrived without warning, letting herself in with the spare key Emily had given her years ago. Megan looked exactly like Urgency bright red coat, hair slightly disheveled, eyes sharp with concern. You actually did it, Megan said, scanning Emily's face. Not judgment, just confirmation. Emily nodded once. Megan exhaled, then softened. Okay, then we don't look back. She dropped her bag on the chair and pulled out her laptop. We're going to fix something else now, your life? For the next 2 hours, they worked side by side. Megan helped Emily map out her finances, not for Chloe, not for emergencies, but for herself. Savings, investments. Boundaries. Real ones. At some point, Emily realized her hands weren't shaking anymore. For the first time in years, nothing was collapsing, because she had finally stopped holding everything together. The silence after cutting everything off should have felt like relief. Instead, it felt unfinished. Emily Carter sat at her desk late Friday evening, the office nearly empty, city lights reflecting off the glass walls around her. She looked the same as always, composed, minimal, controlled, but there was a sharper edge to her now. Like something inside her had finally aligned with reality. Her inbox was open, but she wasn't working. She had typed Chloe's name into the search bar without fully deciding to. It started as instinct. Verification. Emily trusted facts, not emotions. If there was something she had missed, something that explained everything, she needed to see it clearly. That's when she found it. An email thread Chloe had accidentally forwarded weeks ago during vendor discussions, buried between contracts and floral quotes. At first glance, it looked insignificant. No subject line worth noting, just a name, Ryan Keller. Emily clicked. Ryan Keller, 30, was everything Chloe had once described as a mistake. Tall, athletic build, dark blonde hair, always styled just enough to look careless. The kind of man who knew exactly how to be charming when it benefited him. He worked in event promotions, a field that suited his personality fast, persuasive, and just unreliable enough to never stay grounded. Chloe had once called him a lesson I learned the hard way. The emails told a different story. Short messages. Casual at first, then familiar, then intimate. Miss you? Last night was a mistake, but I don't regret it. He doesn't understand you like I do. Emily's eyes didn't widen. She didn't gasp. She just kept reading. Attached to one of the emails was a photo, slightly blurred, taken at night, Chloe laughing, leaning into Ryan's shoulder, her hand resting in a way that wasn't accidental. It wasn't proof of a moment, it was proof of a pattern. Emily leaned back slowly, her expression unreadable. The room felt smaller, quieter, like everything unnecessary had been stripped away. So this was it, not stress, not impulsiveness, a choice. The next morning Daniel found her again, this time in the break room, standing still with a cup of coffee she hadn't touched. Her posture was perfect, but her stillness felt deliberate-like. She was holding something in place. Daniel stepped beside her, not too close. "You look like you've already made a decision," he said quietly. Emily glanced at him. "What makes you think that?" "Because you're not asking questions anymore." That landed. She hesitated for a fraction of a second, then said, "What if telling the truth destroys everything?" Daniel didn't answer immediately. He studied her, his expression calm but intent. "Then the question isn't whether it destroys something," he said. It's whether you can live with yourself if you don't say it." Emily looked away, her grip tightening slightly around the cup. "I'm not saying expose her," Daniel added. "I'm saying don't act out of revenge. Choose the version of this you won't regret in 5 years." That stayed with her, because revenge would be easy, clean, immediate, final. But this required something else. That night Emily sat alone again, the email still open on her screen. Her reflection stared back at her, calm, controlled, but no longer uncertain. For the first time she wasn't deciding what Chloe deserved. She was deciding who she wanted to be. The vineyard sat just outside the city, quiet and polished in a way that made everything feel staged for perfection. White chairs lined the aisle, soft music floated through the air, and guests moved in clusters of laughter and light conversation. It was exactly the kind of wedding Chloe would have wanted. Elegant, effortless, admired. Emily Carter stood at the edge of it all. She wore the same navy dress, simple, structured, nothing that demanded attention. Her posture was steady, her expression calm, but her hands were colder than usual, fingers lightly pressed together as if grounding herself. At 32, Emily had built a life on control and restraint, shaped by years of being the dependable one, but this moment didn't feel like control. It felt like standing at a threshold. She wasn't here to destroy anything. She reminded herself of that with every step. "Hey," Megan's voice cut in gently from behind. Megan Brooks looked exactly like Contra's soft beige coat over a sharp black dress, her usual boldness dialed down, but still present in her steady gaze. She wasn't smiling, but she wasn't worried either. "You don't have to do this," Megan said quietly. Emily shook her head once. "I do, just not the way they think." Megan studied her for a second, then nodded. "Then I'm staying right here." That was enough. Across the venue, near the small stone building where the groom was waiting, stood Ethan Cole. Ethan, 34, was the kind of man people described as steady. Broad-shouldered, tall, with neatly kept brown hair and a clean-cut appearance that reflected his structured life. He worked in architecture, methodical, precise, someone who believed in building things to last. His calm demeanor made people trust him easily. Emily had always thought he deserved better than chaos. Now she knew how much better. Emily walked toward him. Each step felt measured, intentional, like she was walking through something invisible but heavy. Her heart didn't race, it tightened. Controlled but undeniable. Ethan turned as she approached, confusion flickering across his face. "Emily," he said, brows pulling together. I know," she interrupted softly. "I wasn't invited." That alone shifted something in his expression. Emily held his gaze. "I need 5 minutes, that's all." There was hesitation, of course there was, but Ethan wasn't dismissive. He was thoughtful, cautious. He nodded once. "Okay." They stepped aside, away from the guests, into a quieter corner near the building. For a moment Emily said nothing, not because she didn't know what to say, but because this was the point of no return. Her fingers tightened slightly around her phone, then relaxed. Her voice, well, when it came, was steady, but softer than usual. "There's something you need to see before you walk down that aisle." Ethan's expression shifted again, confusion, then a hint of discomfort. "Emily, if this is about the family situation, it's not," she said. That made him stop. She handed him her phone. Ethan hesitated before taking it, his jaw tightening just slightly as he looked down at the screen. At first there was nothing, Just stillness. Then slowly, something changed in his eyes. Not shock, not yet. Recognition, doubt. He looked back up at her. What is this? Something I didn't want to believe either, Emily said quietly. Ethan looked down again, longer this time. The silence stretched. And for the first time since she arrived, Emily felt it. Not fear, not anger, release, because whatever happened next would no longer belong to her. The music had already started when Ethan Cole walked back toward the ceremony space. But something about him had changed. His posture, usually relaxed, grounded, was now rigid, controlled in a way that suggested restraint rather than calm. The phone was still in his hand, his grip firm, like letting go of it would mean losing hold of the truth he had just seen. Guests didn't notice at first. They were too focused on the aisle, on the anticipation, on Chloe. Chloe Carter stood at the front, radiant in a fitted white gown that seemed designed to draw every eye in the room. Her long blonde hair fell in soft waves over her shoulders, her makeup flawless, her smile perfectly timed. She looked exactly like someone stepping into the life she had always imagined, confident, certain, untouchable, until Ethan stopped walking. The officiant, a middle-aged woman named Linda Harper Short, composed, with silver hair and a voice trained to carry calm authority, paused mid-sentence as Ethan raised his hand slightly. "Wait," he said. It wasn't loud, but it cut through everything. Chloe's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. "Ethan," she said, her voice light, almost playful. "What are you doing?" Ethan didn't answer right away. His eyes were fixed on her, not angry, not explosive, but searching, like he was trying to match the person in front of him with the version he thought he knew. "Can we talk?" he said finally. A murmur spread through the guests. Chloe laughed softly, though the tension had already reached her eyes. "We are talking," she said, stepping closer. "Right here." Ethan shook his head once. "No, not like this." That was when she saw the phone. And then everything changed. Her expression shifted, not dramatically, not enough for everyone to notice, but Emily saw it from the back row. The way Chloe's shoulders stiffened, the way her breath caught, just slightly before she recovered. "Where did you get that?" Chloe asked, her voice quieter now. Ethan didn't lower the phone. "Is it true?" Silence, the kind that stretches too long to ignore. Chloe glanced around at the guests, at their mother in the front row, at the eyes starting to settle on her with confusion instead of admiration. Her confidence wavered, just slightly. "It's not what you think," she said quickly. "It was just what?" Ethan's voice wasn't raised, but it was firmer now. "Because I've read enough to know this wasn't nothing." Another pause. This time Chloe didn't recover as easily. Her composure cracked in pieces, not all at once. Her lips parted, her breathing uneven. The perfect image she had built began to fracture under the weight of something real. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this," she said, her voice breaking. "I was stressed, everything was too much, and Ryan just—" He was there. The name landed. A ripple moved through the crowd. Their mother leaned forward slightly, confusion turning into something sharper. Courtney's expression shifted from curiosity to disbelief. People were no longer watching a wedding. They were watching a truth unfold. Ethan didn't move. "Did you love him?" he asked. Chloe shook her head quickly, tears now spilling freely. No, it wasn't like that. I didn't know how to stop. Everything felt like it was happening so fast, and you thought this was easier?" Ethan interrupted quietly. She didn't answer, because there wasn't one. From the back, Emily stood still, her posture unchanged, her expression calm, but not distant anymore. She wasn't invisible this time. People had started to notice her, to connect the pieces. Their mother's eyes found her. For a moment there was something unspoken there, not anger, understanding, not complete, not clean, but enough. For the first time no one turned toward Emily with blame, no accusations, no demands, just silence, and in that silence something shifted, not just in Chloe, in all of them. The wedding didn't end in chaos the way people might expect. There was no screaming exit, no dramatic collapse, just a quiet unraveling. Guests were slowly guided away, conversations hushed and fragmented, the soft elegance of the vineyard replaced by something heavier, more human. The ceremony was postponed, not cancelled. That distinction mattered more than anyone said out loud. Emily Carter remained where she was for a moment longer, standing tall, composed in her navy dress, her presence no longer invisible. At 32, she had spent years making herself smaller so others could feel larger. But now, there was something different in the way she held herself. Not louder, not harsher, just certain. Chloe didn't run. That surprised everyone. Instead, she sat down in one of the white chairs near the aisle, her dress gathered around her, with her hands trembling in her lap. Without the performance, without the audience's approval, she looked younger, fragile, in a way Emily hadn't seen in years. Her blonde hair had fallen slightly out of place, mascara smudging at the edges of her eyes. "I need help," Chloe said finally, her voice raw, stripped of its usual charm. It wasn't directed at anyone in particular, but it landed. Their mother approached first. For once, she didn't rush to fix or defend. She simply stood there, looking between her daughters, something like regret settling into her expression. "We should have seen this sooner," she said quietly. Later that evening, after most guests had left, she found Emily near the parking area. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice unsteady but sincere, "for everything, for not seeing what you've been carrying." It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was real, and for Emily, that was enough. Over the next few weeks, things didn't magically repair themselves, but they changed. Chloe moved out of her apartment and into a smaller place across town. She started therapy, not because anyone forced her to, but because she finally admitted she didn't know how to stop repeating the same patterns. Ryan disappeared from the picture as quickly as he had reappeared, a temporary escape that never had roots. Emily didn't step in, that was the difference. At work, the shift was just as quiet, but just as significant. Daniel Hayes found her one evening as she was packing up early, something she had never done before. He leaned against her desk, arms loosely crossed, a small approving smile on his face. "You're leaving before 8 p.m., he said. "I'm impressed." Emily smiled faintly. "I'm learning." A week later, the promotion came through. Senior manager, no celebration, no dramatic reaction. Just a steady acknowledgement that she had earned something for herself, not for anyone else. "This dinner?" Daniel asked one evening, casual but intentional. Emily paused for a moment, not out of hesitation, but consideration. Then she nodded. "Yeah, dinner sounds good." It wasn't rushed. It wasn't overwhelming. It was chosen. Months later, the wedding was rescheduled. Smaller, quieter, different. Chloe stood at the altar again, but this time without illusions. No perfection, no performance, just honesty. Emily attended, not as a provider, not as a safety net, but as herself. And for the first time in her life, that was enough. The real miracle wasn't the wedding being stopped. It was the moment Emily stopped betraying herself. God will sometimes let you see the truth in the most painful way, so you can finally break free. Not everyone who calls you family truly values you, and you were never meant to earn love by sacrificing yourself. If you've ever felt used, overlooked, or unappreciated, this is your sign. God is redirecting you, not rejecting you. Type Amen if you're ready to choose yourself and trust God's plan. Share this with someone who needs strength today. Subscribe for more powerful, life-changing stories. May God bless you, protect your heart, and lead you to something better.